Good afternoon. This is Valerie Torbert, founder and CEO of Torbert Youth Empowerment. I'm here today to talk to you about our children as usual. As you all know, I am founder and CEO of Torbert Youth Empowerment, a youth organization that has been in place since March 8th of 1993. But specifically, I'd like to talk to you today about trauma. Specifically trauma as it relates to our youth. And as many of you have already observed, our children are having to cope and exist in a state of trauma. They're traumatized. And, as a high school English teacher, as well as founder and CEO of Torbert Youth Empowerment, I'm in contact with youth, on a regular and consistent basis. However, when we just look to society, there are clear signs, clear manifestations, of a youth nationally, who are traumatized. The extent of the trauma is not limited to urban communities. We've got children who are having to deal on a daily and consistent basis with the traumas, the multitude of traumas that stem from living in households, with substance abusers. Right now, our nation, is experiencing a heroin epidemic. And as a result of that, you've got children trying to navigate their way through daily existence with the effects of living in households where substance abuse is the norm, if you will. As adults, you and I both know that there's absolutely nothing normal about living in a household, where one's parents and or caregivers are heroin addicted. Our kids are struggling. So again, I just want to reiterate that the traumatic experiences that are happening with our children include but are not limited to urban areas. That is a major misconception that I have been talking about for many, many years, decades now. Am I giving my age away? For the children, it's worth it. Who cares? But seriously, traumatized children are not only in urban communities, they're in rural communities, they're in suburban communities, they are in the world. They're in America, they're in your community, they're in my community, they're Black, white, Latino, Asian. They're children, period. And we should be outraged, to the extent that our children are trying to navigate their way through childhood, traumatized. If we stop and take a moment here, I'm certain that we can see the manifestations of the trauma within the children, on many fronts. As an educator, an academic educator, I see traumatized children in my classroom, on a regular and consistent basis. And because I'm the founder of Torbert Youth Empowerment, it gives me an additional level of not only sensitivity, but the ability to see the manifestations of their trauma as it relates to trying to function academically. I understand that a traumatized child is not going to be as open and receptive to academic rigor or even the basic structure and functioning, of your typical classroom setting. I get it, which causes me to approach this child in ways that are unconventional, only in the sense that I'm not going to necessarily punish a child because he or she is traumatized. I'm going to, have more sensitivity toward that child. Show him or her additional kindness. Give him or her extended time to complete an assignment, etc., whatever it takes. But unfortunately, we are seeing our children become more and more traumatized. Again, in the academic setting, that's just one arena where the trauma is manifested. The trauma is also manifested in violence. I have never in my life seen as much violence, in the streets as there is now. Not only in the streets, but in movie theaters, you name it. I mean, there are people appear to have a stronger propensity toward violence than in years past, and this is becoming increasingly worse. It's becoming, I hate to say it, commonplace. It's like the new normal, if you will. There's nothing normal about traumatized children and young adults. There's nothing normal about that. Actually, it's abnormal. Social media also plays a part. I mean, I was I was extremely shocked when I noticed some of my students, female students, who were on Facebook talking about girl fights. And I'm sure all of you, well, not all of you, but I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with what I'm referring to here. It's where, a group of girls go and attack another young lady or a group of young ladies, and they just fight like wild animals. And you've got people viewing this type of behavior on Facebook, and they're behaving as though it's entertaining. It's funny. It's ha 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 chuckle time to see another human being be viciously assaulted. I would venture to say that even these kinds of behaviors are manifestations of young people, who are suffering, layers and layers and layers of trauma. Why am I talking about trauma today in particular, you might ask? I'm talking about trauma because there is an urgency in our community for the healing of our youth as it relates to trauma. I have a course here at Torbert Youth Empowerment that specifically addresses trauma in our young people, its manifestations, as well as many other aspects to coping and dealing and ultimately healing trauma in our children. If you're interested in getting this program for any of your children, or getting this instruction for a young person who you believe or for a fact has had to deal with trauma in his or her life, and you're wondering, what's going to be the outcome of all of these unfortunate experiences, that he or she has unfortunately had to deal with. What's going to be the outcome? How are they going to become healthy? How are they going to become whole in their adult lives as a result of all the trauma that's going on in their lives, that's going on around them? Let us here at Torbert Youth Empowerment, help that young person navigate his or her way from trauma toward the healing process. We have a 13-class course that is extremely effective in doing just that. Don't wait. Give us a call. Help us help you to help that young person. Give us a call at 513-344-1503 and register one-on-one instruction, for that individual. Our prices are affordable. They're not cheap, but they're affordable. And help to alleviate the suffering for a child that you know. I'm Valerie Torbert, founder and CEO of Torbert Youth Empowerment. Peace. Thank you.